No love lost for Paul DePodesta. He is leaving the Cleveland Browns, and this changes everything. He's the brains behind the Analytical Era in Cleveland. And without him, Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski might be standing on shaky ground.
Well, this is the best Browns news we have gotten in a long time. Paul DePodesta is gone! He's gone! He is leaving the Cleveland Browns organization. Thank the dear Lord. Paul DePodesta, get the fuck away from my football team. I am so sick and tired of Paul DePodesta. You guys, if you follow this show, you know how much I hate this guy. This San Diego surfboard-loving piece of shit. All he knows how to do is lose. Chief Strategy Officer for the Cleveland Browns since 2016, and all his Moneyball bullshit has bought us is a 56-99-1 record. You are a loser, Paul DePodesta, a f***ing loser. Get away from my football team. That is what I'm talking about, baby. Woo! Oh, man, I am so sorry. Colorado Rockies fans, you guys are getting the biggest piece of garbage executive ever. This guy is a loser. You guys are in for a treat, but thank God he's away from the Browns. Oh, whew, I really didn't even know if this was real when I saw it, because I have been hoping and wishing and begging to get rid of Paul DePodesta for years now. Thank the football gods that this guy is gone. Moving on, leaving the Cleveland Browns to become the Colorado Rockies head of baseball operations. Good luck, guys, and best of wishes to the Cleveland Browns. We can finally move on without this losing piece of garbage as part of our organization. Woo!
Like I said, man, no love lost for Paul, but let me get a little backstory on for y'all that didn't know. This man came from baseball, and he got brought to the Cleveland Browns for the analytics that he did in the MLB. Basically, he was basing roster moves and player development and strategy moves based off analytics to maximize paying players less than maximizing their talent through analytics. That's what he was bringing to the Cleveland Browns. And as far as I heard, listening to some other stuff, that he had an ear for Jimmy Haslam, telling him what to do and what not to do, and some moves that he was a part of with the Deshaun Watson fully guaranteed contract and some other debacles that the Browns done had over these losing years. As you can see how expressive my guy was in the video, man. But yeah, Paul came from baseball, so he's going back to baseball. Now, I don't know how y'all feel about that. Leave a comment down below. A baseball exec coming to the NFL and trying to do the same thing that he did in baseball, but he never won nothing in baseball neither. So then he came to the Browns and never won nothing in the Browns, and they spent more money. So the analytic thing was supposed to work, but it didn't work because they ended up spending more money and wasting a lot of time and talent and money on these players that they invested in. And one of them happened to be my cousin. He was in this article. But yeah, so it didn't work. He moving on. The Browns fans seem like they happy, and we're gonna see what this stands for Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski.
Is reporting that Paul DePodesta is leaving the Cleveland Browns to be the Colorado Rockies head of baseball operations, which basically means he's going to be the de facto GM, because none of those titles mean anything in baseball anymore. And listen, I understand that this might come off as mean-spirited. The reality is nothing good has really happened since Paul DePodesta has been the head of whatever the hell he's done with the Cleveland Browns. And this feels like as big of a win as you can have, because I think Paul has been more of a problem with organizational dynamics than certainly even Andrew or Kevin Stefanski.
Well, we stopped really knowing what he was doing or contributing. That's like the hard part about this conversation is that throughout the years, at one point he was credited with being the person that found Kevin Stefanski to then bring him in to then hire Stefanski. At another point, he was only involved in the NFL draft and free agency. And like in other points, he's been involved heavily in things that aren't even related to football duties.
I've heard marketing. I've heard the stadium stuff.
It's odd, because we've for the longest time have not really been able to identify what in fact he's done. And in the Ken Rosenthal report, he correctly attributes the idea that no one from the Browns media has been able to speak to DePodesta since March of 2022.
Yep.
I mean, it's been 3 years since we've even heard from the guy do any sort of press conferences or media appearances. But this is bigger than DePodesta in my opinion, because I feel like this might be just a look into how Jimmy Haslam is structuring this whole entire ordeal. Do you feel like, Nick, that this is the idea of DePodesta left before he could get fired and took advantage of the baseball jobs that were out there, which would mean we could have a clean house situation at the end of the season involving both Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski and basically everybody involved with the previous failings?
Yeah, I can.
So like I told y'all, the guy came from baseball and then he wanted to go back to baseball before he ended up getting fired by Jimmy Haslam. Supposedly, we don't know if that really was going to happen because the way Jimmy been loyal to these losing people in the organization, I know some owners would have got rid of him after 1 or 2 years with losing in the organization. That man have been there almost 10 years. But with that being said, like you said, what's going to happen to Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski? Is they cleaning the house? Is they getting the boot? But at the same time, my opinion, I don't know, just speculation. Andrew Berry trying to help Shedeur and make him the franchise quarterback. But who knows, man? We don't know if they're going to have their job at the end of the season or not. But I do know this. Jimmy Haslam like them because they do, boys. They say exactly what they want him to say. They say exactly what he want them to say. Basically nothing. Okay, they don't give nothing to the media. They don't say nothing.
Understand. I mean, like a week ago, I was having a conversation where somebody was like, "Yeah, DePodesta's got a job as long as he wants," because that's how normalized the idea of this guy having none of the Browns' failures attributed to him. Absa stinking lootly. I think your read is right. I don't know why I said it that way, but absolutely right. I think your read is right. Like, this feels like a rats jumping off the ship moment. And honestly, it feels like a win for the Browns fan. Like, it does. Mm-hmm. Like, all right, listen, I don't know what Paul DePodesta did, but I know that his record is like a 350 winning percentage since he's been here. And by the way, I think he was the guy with Haslam's ear. And as it has been with Jimmy Haslam, is whoever's got his ear is the way this thing is going to go. I almost look at it is when, like, Howie Roseman was working out of a closet in Philly.
Yeah, well, Chip Kelly put him in there.
And no one was really safe. Like, this is a guy that had ousted Tom Heckard, and he had ousted Andy Reid. He had out-survived all these guys. And Chip Kelly's biggest problem was not annexing him to, like, Chicago. And so, in the end, Howie Roseman came out of the... I wasn't going to say that the right way.
Yeah, that was...
Howie Roseman emerged again from the rubbles of the Chip Kelly era.
You almost did an R. Kelly song.
I did. I really did. But I do think, like, yes, I think this is one of the first rats jumping off the ship. And I'll tell you, it's bad in Cleveland when Paul DePodesta is part of this report. This is the way it's written. Paul DePodesta, who's going to the Colorado Rockies, who've been historically bad the last 3 years, doesn't want to be associated with the Browns' failures. You know how I know? Here's one of the pieces of the Ken Rosenthal thing.
Okay.
At least by organizational chart and responsibility, DePodesta did not make personnel decisions. He worked with ownership and football operations on various projects and was regarded as a large part of the team's planning for free agency each March and NFL draft each April. He has always had a behind-the-scenes, mostly secretive role, continue to live in La Jolla, California, and either work remotely or commute to Northeast Ohio. He's distancing himself from the Browns' success, or the lack of success.
He should, considering...
Hold on. So dude didn't even stay in Cleveland? He working for Cleveland, but he didn't live in Cleveland? How can you be making... Well, they say he distanced himself, but how can you be making strategy moves, executive strategy officer, and you in Cali, and the team in Cleveland? You ain't even around the team and the organization to be making the decision for the organization. How is that even possible, bro? This telling me he was just getting a check. He actually was in Jimmy Haslam's ear, collecting a check, telling Jimmy, do this, do that, based off the numbers, or whatever numbers he was looking at, or numbers he wasn't looking at. We gonna do this, do that, and Jimmy was just going along because Jimmy, I told y'all, Jimmy ain't want to have nothing to do with his team. He just owned the team. But he running them other business, them oil rigs and them truck stops and stuff that making him the real money. This just a tax write-off. This stadium and all this stuff, that's what Jimmy want. Jimmy didn't want to have nothing to do with these football operations, and I don't think maybe Paul left on his own. I don't think Jimmy probably wasn't even going to fire him then. Maybe Paul left on his own because he wanted to go back to baseball. That's probably what it is. I don't even think it was in my head. Just thinking now, I don't even think it was a decision that he was gonna get fired. Maybe Paul just wanted to go ahead and go back to baseball because that's where he really wanted to be at. And it's probably more money. We don't know. We don't know how much he was getting paid or the contract. So it is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Now he's got a new job in baseball, so he's fine. But wiping away 10 years of stink. If I could do it the way that he just did it through Ken Rosenthal, I would do that 11 times out of 10.
All right. Does this make you just feel like I feel better? Okay.
Was this short pound of flesh?
For now.
Like, you know how we were wondering what we were going to get at the bye week. We didn't even get Andrew Berry speaking. It seems like the play calling duties being handed off from Kevin Stefanski to Tommy Rees. That was some semblance of a breadcrumb of sorts to maybe make the fan base feel happy. Was this short pound of flesh to say, okay, they're doing something, they're acknowledging some of these mistakes, and here we go?
Yes. Like, this would be the kind of thing where right now I feel more open to the idea of football people making football decisions, which is what matters to me. Like Paul DePodesta, by the way, Paul DePodesta wasn't ever really a baseball guy. He was like the lead nerd that infiltrated baseball and just has ushered in this era of guys who never played at the big league levels, guys who talk more like Walmart CEOs or Coke CEOs than they do actual, athletes or people who know the game.
He's not Tony La Russa. let's make that abundantly clear.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to do it because, it's a good day. I'm not making Tony La Russa jokes. But no, I mean, I think like one of the big problems, and honestly, like Paul and Kevin, if you go back to Paul when he was a GM, it's very much the same thing that we did with Kevin. It's not answers. It's nothing specific. It's an organizational thing. Like, I think he was a big part of this messaging that just did not resonate here in Cleveland.
I think it was a big part of it, but what's odd is that throughout times, I thought that he kind of disappeared the same way at times I've thought that Jimmy Haslam has disappeared into the background. He was not as apparent and obvious when it was John Dorsey that was here, for instance. Like, John Dorsey did what John Dorsey wanted, but it does feel like, just like Haslam's creeped back into a lot of these conversations in the past couple years, it does feel like DePodesta's creeped right back into a lot of the, not only the personnel decisions, but a lot of the draft decisions as well.
I think it's fair to ask, what does this mean for Kevin Stefanski, and what does this mean for
if you're Stefanski and Berry, you hear this news, do you think, awesome, we got rid of him? Or do you think to yourself, oh no, Haslam's firing everybody now? Haslam.
My savage. Moneymane in the thing of a T and playing no games. Should I already know my name when I speak NCC flame. Got my YouTube poppin', man. Like, subscribe, and everything in between. You already know Moneymane. You all